Raider Nation, what's going on? It's Mitchell Rentz here, host of the Raiders Report, and coming up on today's show, Tom Telesco, Antonio Pierce, they reveal what their plan is for the Las Vegas Raiders at quarterback. On top of that, we're going to break down all of the things that I think are noteworthy that happened today at Raiders rookie minicamp, because a lot of stuff happened, but I'm going to try to put all the main stuff at the very end of just kind of like the cliff notes of what I think that you should know. So for those of you that do not know, Telesco, he spoke to NFL Network on Thursday. Antonio Pierce, he spoke to the media on Friday. And Telesco said that the Raiders are comfortable with Aidan O'Connell and Gardner Minshew at quarterback, which, like, I'll always say this. This has been what this organization has said for months and months and months. That does not mean that they weren't trying to get a quarterback like Jaden. They absolutely were. But Telesco did say that they never thought about trading up for Michael Penix Jr., which I know some people might agree with, some people might disagree with. But, like, everything that the Raiders beat reporters reported, this is extremely truthful in terms of what was reported over the past 2-3 months. And then as soon as Penix was drafted, the Raiders knew that they were not going to take a quarterback, hence all of them saying, like, we weren't looking at a QB on day 2. We weren't looking at a quarterback on day 3. What Telesco had to say, though, about Aidan O'Connell, he also had some interesting words to say about Gardner Minshew. First, though, let's talk about AOC. That's the plan, is to have both these guys really compete through the offseason program, but more so in training camp. And we'll see how it plays out. I thought Aidan did an excellent job last year in a really difficult situation where the head coach changed, the coordinator changed, and he played really good football down the stretch. Now, I will admit that I did think that Aidan at times looked better. I will also say that his numbers are very skewed because he has that one game against the Chargers where 4 touchdowns, and I get it, he had a good game. The Chargers, that was a weird, wonky game. Then that final game against the Denver Broncos, the 2 touchdowns, 248 yards, that was against a team that, let's also face it, kind of gave up a little bit. But, like, in a nutshell, when you look at the numbers in a whole for AOC as a rookie, and he was in a very difficult situation. New head coach, new OC. It's not easy for what he dealt with. And then on top of that, him being a rookie, he also had the second best rookie numbers behind only C.J. Stroud last season. So what I like to do is when I like to look at numbers, I also like to look at the numbers on a per-game basis of Aidan O'Connell with Antonio Pierce. So he had a 61.5% completion percentage. He was averaging 212 yards, 1.2 touchdowns, and then 0.55 interceptions. Now, I know when you look at that, you're like, well, Mitch, can you break that down for me a little bit easier? If you were to look at all of Aidan O'Connell's stats with Antonio Pierce on a 17-game projection, that is a 61.4% completion percentage. That's 3,598 yards, 21 touchdowns, and 9 interceptions. If we end this next season and Aidan has that type of production, how would you feel about it? And I just wanted to show what those numbers essentially look like. Here's also what Telesco had to say a little bit more on Aidan. I have had a chance to be around him a little bit more and in the building, and you kind of see the quarterback intangibles that are there, which is nice to have, that you need to have as a franchise quarterback. I think when you look at what Aidan does and everything that Aidan has above the shoulder pads is exactly what you're looking for, I think, in that franchise quarterback. Like, nobody, when they talk to Aidan, he is cool, he's calm, he's collected, he says the right things, and he does. He has this, like, silent swagger confidence about him. And if you had the athletic ability, Aidan would have everything, and he does have, I think, everything up here of what you need to be an NFL quarterback, a franchise quarterback. The problem is, does he have the athletic ability? Does he have the ability to play quarterback at the starting level? I will say this. I'm really, really excited to see how this quarterback competition does end up going down with AOC and Gardner Minshew. And I'm pulling for both guys because if both guys go out there and ball, that just means that they're going to have a lot better quarterback room than maybe a lot of other people out there thought. Coming up next here, though, what Telesco said about Gardner Minshew, and then I'm going to give my prediction of who I think is going to be the Raiders' starting quarterback this season, despite Antonio Pierce saying that Aidan is getting the first crack at it. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to the Raiders Report. Join the nation. We are the most interactive and informative Raiders YouTube channel out there. At least that's what my mom tells me. And we're pumping out lots of content every single day. We go live multiple times a week. And even though it's the off season, the content doesn't slow down here at the show at all. Let's go into what Telesco had to say about Gardner Minshew. And then we have Gardner. You know, Gardner played well last season with the Colts. I mean, he was in the Pro Bowl, So obviously had a pretty good year. He's always performed at a high level when he's given that opportunity. So to have both those guys here competing for the job, we'll see how it goes. I will first off by saying just because a guy makes it to the Pro Bowl doesn't mean that they played well. I mean, we've seen years before where the backup quarterback, Tyler Huntley, was in the Pro Bowl because nobody else could make it, and he threw like 2 touchdowns that season. I will admit, though, that this has been the plan all along where there was going to be a quarterback battle between all the guys that end up coming in. AOC Minshew, it's going to be a fun one, and I will say that the winner of this competition battle, it is going to be a make-or-break season, both for Gardner Minshew and both for Aidan O'Connell, because if Aidan can beat out Gardner, then I think a lot of NFL teams look around the NFL and they're like, well, maybe Gardner's not the guy that we originally thought he was, and he's not in that starting conversation. If Gardner goes out there and he beats Aidan O'Connell, I think then that kind of tells the NFL that, all right, AOC is just a backup quarterback. But, like, Gardner's done some good things. I think he did a halfway decent job last season. 15 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, 3,305 yards on a Colts team that, like, nobody really thought that they were going to be anything special. And I don't think that that's unfair to say. When you look at the talent level compared to what AOC had, compared to what Gardner had, I mean, O'Connell had way, way more talent around him than what Minshew had for Indianapolis. And in the head-to-head matchup, you got to give your, kudos to the quarterbacks. Minshew's Colts did end up beating Aidan O'Connell's Raiders, which, not saying it's just the quarterbacks that determine that game, but that is a competition, and the Colts unfortunately won that one. When you look at the 2023 numbers on a per-game basis, again, the numbers that you see on the left for Aidan, those are his numbers with Antonio Pierce. The games for Gardner Minshew are the 15 games that he actually played in. There's 2 games that he technically participated in, but did not actually play in. So when you look at these numbers, they are very, very similar on a per-game basis. Yes, the yards, completions, it's literally like right there. Interceptions, touchdowns, quarterback rating, all very, very similar. If you were to take those stats and project them out for a 17-game sample size, again, yards advantage Minshew. Touchdowns, at least passing, advantage AOC. Interceptions, basically the same. Rushing touchdowns there for Gardner. So, like, I know that I come off at times of like not being an AOC believer or maybe not being a Gardner Minshew believer. I am a believer that this is going to be a fun quarterback battle, and hopefully it makes both of these guys better, because I'll tell you this, I'm not going to be upset if Gardner wins. I'm not going to be upset if Aidan wins. Quite frankly, I don't give a shit who wins this quarterback battle, because whoever wins it is the better QB, which at the end of the day is the only thing that I care about. So let me know down below. I want you to pick a starter if you had to, because I know what AP said. Aidan's going to get the first crack out of it, and he is going to get the first crack at it this offseason. But when it comes to being a starting quarterback week 1 for the Silver and Black, is it going to be Gardner Minshew? Is it going to be Aidan O'Connell? Type GM for Gardner, AOC for Aidan. Me personally, I am a big believer that Aidan is going to show people that he is getting better and better. And I do think that that's not going to be surprising. But I also know what Aidan's limitations are, and I also know what Gardner Minshew can bring to the table. And because of that, I do think an entire offseason, Gardner Minshew is going to beat out Aidan O'Connell to get that starting quarterback job. And coming up, I'm going to tell you why. Because to me, there are 3 really, really big reasons why the Raiders are going to start Gardner over Aidan O'Connell. Before I get into that, though, I do want to give a shout-out to our sponsor. We got an awesome hat deal going on right now. If you go to chatsports.com/Raiders hats, you can get your snapback. You can get trucker hats. They got corduroy hats. They're all different sizes, colors. I mean, bottom line is, if you need a Raiders hat, we got them covered. Actually, we also have the brand new Raiders draft hats on top of that. So all you got to do is go to the link that's going to be down in the comments, down in the description of today's show. It is chatsports.com/Raiders hats. Hundreds, and I mean hundreds of hats. I don't even remember which ones are exactly on sale, but we do have some that are on sale. I know the Salute to Service ones are on sale. So if you remember Billy Mays, I feel like Billy Mays here. Raiders hats, chatsports.com/Raiders hats. So here's why Minshew, in my opinion, is going to beat out Aidan O'Connell for the Raiders' starting quarterback role. The first one is that the Silver and Black made Minshew a priority. And what do I mean by that? You got to give AP and Telesco a lot of credit this offseason, where everything that they have said has been relatively truthful. Am I wrong? I mean, they have told you what their priorities have been. Their priorities were building in the trenches on the offensive line and defensive line. They 100% did that in the draft and in free agency. But they also made Gardner Minshew a priority. I mean, the day that they signed Christian Wilkins, the very first day that you could sign a free agent, their top two priorities were, let's go get Christian Wilkins, and then let's go get Gardner Minshew. They signed him to a 2-year, $25 million contract with $15 million guaranteed. My belief is because they went out and they did that, they made Gardner a priority. To me, actions speak louder than words, and I know what Antonio Pierce said. I know what Telesco said. This is going to be a quarterback battle, but the actions of the Raiders this entire offseason indicate to me that it's going to be Gardner and not AOC. The other one was this, that the Raiders all offseason have told you that they wanted to upgrade at quarterback. Mark Davis gave the okay. Telesco was saying that they were going to be aggressive. Antonio Pierce was saying things like they want to find a franchise quarterback, not a Band-Aid, a guy they can have, going forward for 10 years, a quarterback that can use his legs. And, I like Aidan, and I'm always going to say that to me, Aidan is going to be a really good backup in the league. But when you give a quarterback 2 years, $25 million, essentially they made him the highest paid backup QB this offseason, and the original plan was that they were going to try to get a QB in the draft. And if that ended up not working, then I think what you have now is what happened. A quarterback battle between Minshew and Aidan O'Connell. But not only did you give Gardner that deal, not only did you make Gardner a priority, it is a well-known fact that the Raiders were willing and trying to trade up to pick number 2, trying to trade up to pick number 3. The Commanders said no. The Patriots said no. A bunch of NFL teams said no because of how high the price is. So, my biggest point is, yes, I get that the Raiders right now are saying Aidan's their guy. But also the other side of the coin is you signed Minshew, you made him a priority, you tried to trade up to number 2. You wouldn't do those two things if you had the utmost confidence in Aidan. They believe in Aidan as a backup, and this season, that's what he's going to be. The last one is, and it's just the God-honest truth here. To me, Minshew is the better quarterback top to bottom. Do I think Aidan shows that he can understand an NFL offense? Yes, I do. But, what does Aidan O'Connell do that is better than Gardner Minshew? It's an honest question. I'm not sitting up here even pumping up smoke up Gardner's you-know-what. It is an honest question of, does Aidan O'Connell do anything at a spectacular level? Does he do anything above average? It's an honest question because to me, when you watch his film, when you watch Aidan play, he does everything average to below average. And in fact, I don't know if there's a single thing off the top of my head right now. He's got good accuracy, but even the accuracy that what we were expecting, I think fell short a little bit. All those reasons are why I believe Gardner Minshew ends up being the starting quarterback for the Silver and Black. Now, coming up next here on the show, let's get into some Raiders rookie minicamp news because today was the first day of rookie minicamp, and don't get me wrong, I love talking Aidan, I love talking Gardner Minshew, but I love actually talking real Raiders football, the news, the stuff that's actually going on, and this is what we get to do here today and tomorrow. So for those that do not know, Vincent Bonsignori sent out something that was basically FYI, all the Raiders rookies will be participating this weekend because they've already signed 6 out of 8. So in case you were not wondering, some of the guys that are going to be there and some of the guys that aren't going to be there, all the players were there. They also invited 32 players to rookie minicamp in total. So some of y'all are probably doing that math. You're like, well, wait, Mitch, we had 8 rookies drafted, 17 UDFA signed. So where are the other 7 coming from? I'm going to tell you. First player is Fred Tompkins, who had a rookie camp tryout today. He was a linebacker from UNLV, so I'm not really surprised that they decided to bring him in, at least for a little bit of a workout. 60 tackles, 1 sack, 1 forced fumble. If you want to be able to watch this on TV or zoom in on it, here was the full breakdown list of every single player that was invited to Raiders rookie minicamp. So you see a lot of different position players in there, and I know it was a little bit hard to see, but there was also 6 second-year guys that the Raiders decided to bring in for just, probably to get some extra rep. The reason why I wanted to show you these players up here is simply because, to me, if you're the 6 players that are at Raiders rookie minicamp, it's probably not a good thing, and it probably indicates that you're on the bottom of the roster and might be the first people to get cut. I will also say that David Agoa is not going to be one of those players. He is an international pathway program player, so they can just keep him on the roster. But for Jaden Grant, Tyreek McAllister, Jalen McKenzie, John Samuel Schnenker, and then Charles Snowden, I got a gut feeling that if the Raiders decide to sign any free agents or if they decide to make any more moves, the first players that they're getting rid of are the 5 players that are pictured here, not David Ogoa. Let's get into some of the hype that happened today. And I said yesterday when I was live on the show, I hope y'all are ready for the Brock Bowers hype because it has already started. The main buzz around Raiders rookie minicamp is Brock Bowers is an alien. He is a different human being. He just looks totally different, and the Raiders feel like that they got an absolute steal. Some people are saying arguably one of the best players on the board in the NFL draft, and he fell to 13. Another thing that's been catching a lot of buzz is around Aidan O'Connell because, again, Antonio Pierce said that he's going to get the first snap, which I would say, no duh. I would say this is what the plan has been, and I will continue to say, even if the Raiders would have traded up for Jaden, even if the Raiders would have taken Michael Penix Jr. at 13, I believe Antonio Pierce would have said, Aidan gets the first snap, he gets the first crack at it. Doesn't mean that that's going to be his job, though. Something else that I found interesting, Antonio Pierce talked very confidently about Thayer Munford today, essentially saying, like, y'all were the ones saying that we didn't believe in Thayer or that we didn't need a right tackle. It sounds like it's Thayer's job to lose. Like, Thayer is going to be your right tackle, and there is no ifs, ands, or buts about it. Another very interesting thing was the Raiders recently, and they signed Andrus Peat. Antonio Pierce called him a potential Pro Bowler guard. I'm going to guess that Pete's going to potentially play guard. Also said that he is staying on the left side. So one of the things that we speculated was, all right, could the Raiders potentially put Pete on the right side to battle with Thayer? That ain't happening. The fact that he's staying on the left side, also I thought it was very interesting that Jackson Powers-Johnson was getting work on the left side today at guard. I have been the one saying that Jackson Powers-Johnson is a left guard, and that's personally where I would put him. But, like, there's some questions to me wondering, they said Pete is a Pro Bowl guard, and he's staying on the left side. Could they decide to put Jackson Powers at right guard, and could we have a little bit of trade buzz, trade rumors around Dylan Parham? Because, again, that's a McDaniels guy. And if Pete's a dog and they want to put him at guard, what if you put Powers-Johnson at right guard? The whole Dylan Parham speculation, I think it's going to start growing here over the next week or so. Another thing that was very interesting was DeCamerion Richardson. He was one of the players that spoke to the media. So him, Jackson Powers-Johnson, Delmar Glaze, Brock Bowers all spoke. Antonio Pierce really hyped up how great of an athlete Richardson was. Also said that he was a sponge. Loved to tackle. He led the SEC in tackles the past 2 seasons. And when you're playing at that high of a level, at that type of, like, physicality, was one of the reasons why the Raiders fell in love with him. A lot of other notes that you probably could see. And if anybody wants to see all of the notes that I took from everything that was said today by Antonio Pierce, give me a follow on Instagram and on Twitter. I have a bunch of these tweets out there I probably have like 20 of them, of just everything AP said about certain players. Like, there's more notes on Delmar Glaze. There's some interesting notes on Tommy Eichenberg. Hell, Antonio Pierce threw out the term green dot when talking about Tommy Eichenberg today, which I thought was a little bit of an eye-popping thing to say. And there's just a lot of good notes. Football is back. I'm happy that football, to a certain degree, is back. I know some of y'all are probably jumping the gun a little bit with me saying that in May. I got a few eye rolls out there in the office. But to me, we talk so much about rumors. The fact that we finally now get some rookie minicamp stuff to sink our teeth into, it feels great, man. Raiders football right around the corner. I can't freaking wait for this season.